What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Cup Check. I'm here with my co-host Dawson Taylor, and today we're just going to be talking about the Hall of Fame voting that just happened. First of all, Dawson, let's just get right to it. Who would you vote for if you were a member of the BBWAA?
I'm just gonna come out and say it. It's time to free the Hall of Fame. We need to have these steroid users who, you know what, they're not great people because they did steroids, but
Still
they
be
say,
great people, honestly.
huh?
They could still be good dudes. They took some roids.
Yeah,
Made a
cheaters.
mistake.
This isn't the Hall of Great People. It's the Hall of Baseball, the Hall of the Hall of Fame, the Hall of Baseball fame, and I do think that especially Bonds, Clemens, A-Rod, like those are kind of the three best players on this list. I feel like, and they're all pretty like heavily steroid users. I think they all deserve to be in. I think you can make the argument that A-Rod is the best shortstop of all time. I think you can make the argument that Bonds is the best player of all time. And I think you can make the argument that Clemens is the best pitcher of all time. So just going off that, these are people that deserve to be in the Hall of Fame, and I would have voted for them.
I agree. I would have voted for them too, and I'll just run through what my ballot would be. If I got a vote, I would vote for David Ortiz, Barry Bonds, Roger Clemens, Kurt Schilling, Scott Rowland, A-Rod, and Manny. That would be my ballot. I'd leave off the notable ones. I'd leave off are probably Todd Helton, Billy Wagner, Andrew Jones, and
So
Jeff Jeff Kent, Gary Sheffield, Sosa. Those are the big ones. Vizquel. What do you think about Schilling getting in? I know a lot of people didn't vote for him because of some like social media stuff, but what do you think just about his attributes and like how he was as a pitcher?
yeah, just taking like a brief look at his baseball reference, like it's kind of clear that the dude's a Hall of Famer. Like 3,000 strikeouts, World Series MVP, 3 World Series, like those are very notable things, and I feel like you can't really take into account um, everything that happens off the field. Like obviously, if someone does something like absolutely crazy and absurd, like then maybe there's a pretty good argument to not put him in. But the guy's highly opinionated. That's not really a crime, even though it can be looked down on. But as far as a baseball player, he definitely wouldn't be the worst baseball pitcher in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, definitely not. I think he
1,000
definitely.
strikeouts is no small accomplishment. There's
I
not a
think he's
lot of
done
people
that.
that can say they've done
Also, just what he's done in the postseason is really big for me.
that. Yeah.
Next thing I want to ask you, with the steroid users, a lot of it's really wishy-washy. Would you put any difference in the way that Ortiz, Bonds, Clemens, I believe Sheffield, Sosa, all of them, they never actually got suspended for steroid use during their careers. It was more like way back in the day, they got like tested positive, but MLB didn't do much about it back then. Is there any difference between that for you and like how A-Rod and Manny uh, all were suspended by MLB during their career long after like Bonds and Clemens had already retired? How do you feel about that?
Yeah, I feel like as soon as the MLB suspends them, that's their punishment. A-Rod sat out a season. I'm pretty sure he sat out a full season. And what's to say if he didn't have that season and maybe a little bit more, he's not the all-time home run king or, up there even higher. I think that they served their suspension, they took their punishment, and they should not be punished again, because the Hall of Fame should just be about the greatest baseball players who had the biggest impact on the game. And I think they definitely had a big impact.
I think that's a very good way to put it. It's for the best players that had the best impact on the game. And you definitely cannot have that conversation without A-Rod. Even though he's not always the most likable guy, like maybe Big Poppy is, Uh, he's he's definitely one of the best players of all time, no doubt.
Yeah, and especially just like thinking about Bonds, like um, I just remember like talking to my dad about like what it was like watching Bonds, and because I was alive for it, but I wasn't really like old enough to comprehend what was happening in the early 2000s. And he said that when Bonds was up, time stopped and people turned the channels to go watch Bonds to see if he hit a home run. And I don't think that there's like a player like that in today's game that has that impact where if a family's watching a movie, they would consider switching the channel just to watch a guy take an at bat. I mean, I think Bonds and Clemens, and maybe A Rod too. I got to look into like exactly when he had that positive test, but I think that there's a solid argument that those guys were Hall of Famers before they took PEDs. So yeah.
Yeah. Um, just a couple more guys here. What do you think about Billy Wagner? I would not put him personally on my ballot. A lot of that's just I I find it hard to put a pitcher in the Hall of Fame that didn't even reach 1,000 innings. Um, but I think as far as relievers go, he's really close. But honestly, the only reliever I think should be in the Hall of Fame might be Mariano Rivera. I would have to look at it a little bit more, but so what do you think about Billy Wagner?
I mean, I think we're gonna be running into this like a few more years down the line, especially when eventually Aroldis Chapman hangs it up and Craig Kimbrell as well, um, and maybe Keith Bell. I don't know. I think no, never mind. Cut that. um, I just think that eventually people are gonna have to start recognizing relievers as an actual position in baseball, and I
That's
don't
true.
think it's fair.
The game has changed where they don't get as many innings anymore, and it is one of the most important positions on the field.
Yeah, I
Um,
mean, if your job is to come in, pitch one inning, and close the game, and you're an all-time great at that, I think you deserve to be in the Hall of Fame because that's one of the most important roles in the game. And I'm pretty sure Billy Wagner might be second best reliever of all time. I'm not 100% sure behind Rivera, but I know he's up there. I think Billy Wagner should have gotten a lot more consideration than he did.
yeah, that's a good point. Is there anyone else that you want to talk about in particular?
Yeah, I do find it. I mean, just for me, like if I'm voting in Bonds, Clemens, and all the other cheaters, I'm voting in Sosa as well. If I'm voting all the other steroid people, but I wouldn't want to vote in Sosa without also getting McGuire in there as well. I feel like those two kind of their stories hand in hand, and it wouldn't feel right if one of them was in, the other wasn't.
So since McGuire is off the ballot, would you would you still feel comfortable voting Sosa in?
I wouldn't, because I don't think you can tell the story of either one of them without the other.
Yeah, that's true. That's a good point.
And the last person I'll touch on as a bit of a Cardinal fan, as a Red fan over there. We both love some Scott Rowland. I mean, we're talking about one of the greatest defensive players of all time. Did you have Rowland on your ballot?
Yep.
You did? Awesome. Me too. And I guess I'll say something about Andrew Jones as well, just because I remember being like a little kid and thinking he was like pretty insane. And I did watch what's that YouTube channel that's like the really good baseball content.
Foolish baseball.
Foolish Baseball, yeah. Foolish Baseball talked about Andrew Jones and just like completely like I think it's a no-brainer that that dude's in the Hall of Fame. He's got like 500 home runs or just under, and he's the second best defensive player, center fielder of all time. Like I don't know, that just seems like a no-brainer. I don't get why he didn't get more consideration.
Yeah, there's definitely an argument. He fell off really hard when he fell off, but his prime is just as good as anyone's.
Yeah, and I think that can be said about a lot of the players on here, but yeah, I think Jones should have got more consideration. I do think Roland will get in eventually, and I also think A Rod will weasel his way in there eventually. You
Uh,
don't?
I think that now that Bonds, you can't put in A-Rod without putting in Bonds. So maybe on the Veterans Committee way down the road, but I think he's. I think if Bonds would have gotten in this year, I think A-Rod would have gotten in eventually, but I don't know about it now.
Yeah, I mean, go watch Foolish Baseball's new video about A-Rod being a girl boss. I mean, from
Oh,
that video, it makes it pretty clear A-Rod's trying to pull every angle he can to get in. And I hope he does. That'd be good for A-Rod. So I think that's gonna I think that's gonna wrap up the Hall of Fame episode. Shout out Zach for a second ever episode of Cup Check.
yeah, let's just BBWAA's got to stop being the morality police of baseball because it'll never end. Everyone's made mistakes and
Yeah,
it's tough. But anyways, yeah, go ahead, Dawson.
yeah. I can't wait for the Writers Association to try and say Ichiro. Like I'm sure someone out there is gonna be like, oh Ichiro, he didn't have enough years or whatever. Like shut up. Like we just got to put the people that deserve to be in. It's not rocket science, and maybe it shouldn't be the Writers Association making the call. Like why did the players not have any say in who is in the Hall of Fame? I don't know. Just food for
That's got to
thought.
change. Maybe one day we can make a video about how to improve the Hall of Fame process. But
I don't want Manfred making the calls, but someone's gotta step up.
yeah.
Yep. All right. That was the Hall of Fame reaction video on Cup Check. Stay tuned for future videos. Signing off.